Welcome to my Not Diets kitchen. The purpose of this video today is to explain an important change in the nutrient-packed Not Diets lifestyle. This lifestyle is nutrient-packed because the foundation piece is that we get to enjoy a green smoothie every day with all of these nutrients. Look at the powerhouse of nutrients here. We have an entire pound, a pound if you're making two, a half pound of greens per person. Each person is getting an entire cup of berries every day, flax or chia seeds every day, and a full complement of other important nutrients when they drink their daily green smoothie. But Not Diets is also committed to making changes as I learn new science or new truth is brought to my attention. Well, just such a thing has happened in the last few months. Most of my learning has been from Western medicine doctors who have studied nutrition and from other scientists who have been influenced by Western medicine. A couple of months ago, I was exposed to new truth, which really isn't new at all, because this truth came to me from an acupuncturist who has studied Chinese medicine. And this truth also agrees with what ancient Indian medicine has always taught, and that is called Ayurvedic medicine. Both of them teach that there are different types of individuals. We aren't all the same, which we all know that's true, but some people have a cold composition or constitution, and some people have a warmer or hot constitution to their body type. Now, the cold constitution person is the person that this change will affect, and that was me. So let me just explain to you the difference between a cold constitution person and a warm constitution person. A cold constitution person is that person who may have cold hands or feet all the time or most of the time. They don't thrive in cold, damp, windy climates. They prefer warmth. And the reason why is often their body temperature runs lower than normal. My body temperature, the normal is not 98.6 like most individuals. What science calls normal is what is an average, but some of us run lower than that and some of us run higher. Cold constitution people often have digestive issues as well. So anyone who is that cold constitution person or a person with digestive issues such as irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, or chronic constipation, leaky gut. So this is the cold constitution person or the person with a digestive issue. When a person has these digestive issues, which I've just listed, often their digestive fire, as it's defined by Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, is low. Because their body is not as warm as the average person's body, when a cold drink like a smoothie hits it, it takes a lot of energy to warm that drink up to be able to digest it. And when you're doing this once in a while, no big deal. But when every day you're starting your day with this cold green smoothie, over time, such as for me, I've been drinking green smoothies for 10 years, but daily for at least 5 or 6 years. And over time that begins to paralyze or numb the digestive system to where it doesn't work as it should. So I was faced with this information and I was perplexed what to do. Now, the reason I said it doesn't affect everybody is my husband has a hot constitution. The green smoothies that he drinks every day along with me haven't affected him a bit. He is thriving. But I began to experience some digestive difficulties, which is why I was speaking to the acupuncturist in the first place. So, as I said, this brought a dilemma before me, and I began to study and see what the truth was about Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, the hot constitution, the cold constitution. And what I realized is that, oh my goodness, I'm not willing to give up this nutrition, and yet at the same time I can't continue to have it as I have had it. I was pretty committed to having it in blended form for this reason. Dr. Russ Blaylock tells us in his book, Natural Strategies for Cancer Patients, that if I ate this entire plate of greens, which would take a lot of chewing, this is a ½ pound of greens, but if I ate all of this with my best chewing, I would probably absorb about 30% of the nutrition in those greens. But if I put those same greens in a blender and blenderize them, it breaks down the rigid cell walls of the greens, so I absorb about 90% of the greens. So that's 3 times the absorption of nutrients. I couldn't give that up. So, you know me. If you know me, I like to create recipes, and I had to create a solution. And my solution for those of us who may not be thriving with cold drinks, but may like warm things in the morning and prefer warm drinks, that solution is green porridge. Yes, green porridge. I wasn't willing to go back to oatmeal every morning. I wanted something that contained all these greens yet was warm. Now let me tell you, season of the year matters too. If it's summer and once in a while you want a cold smoothie and you're digesting okay, that's just fine. But in the winter especially, a cold constitution person has trouble warming up the cold smoothie. One solution is just to make your smoothie with room temperature fruit and eat it at room temperature. But I would urge you to try this recipe because I find it so different for my body. The very same components, but I feel better when I drink them warm or eat them warm, as you're going to see. Since it's porridge, I eat it out of a bowl and with a spoon, and I feel completely different. I feel so satisfied, so complete when I have this for breakfast. So I'm going to show you how to make it. Now, I imagine that over time I'll make many varieties of green porridge. But for starters, I've come up with my favorite. Now, let me say, you could make a savory green porridge with spices like garlic and, savory spices. But I like something sweet sometimes, so my first green porridge is a turmeric and spice green porridge. So, if you have a Vitamix, you are most blessed because you can do it all in the Vitamix and make it warm. Vitamix has a design whereby if you turn it onto high speed, you can make soups and you can warm things. If you're making your smoothie now in something other than a Vitamix, then you're going to need to adjust this recipe a bit by using some boiling water to start with and probably steaming some of the greens, not all. So you'll have to make those adjustments. So this is a good pitch for buying a Vitamix, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to start this recipe with a banana, but instead of using a frozen banana, we are going to use one that is at room temperature. And you could make your smoothie with a room temperature banana to improve your ability to digest that. Then the next thing we're going to add is cashew milk. This cashew milk could be heated if you didn't have a Vitamix. It's a ½ cup of cashew milk. I know I start my green smoothie with water, but I found I liked the creaminess of the cashew milk for my porridge, and I just count that as part of my nuts for the day. Then the next thing we have is 2 cardamom pods. Now this is very interesting too, because as I started studying Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, guess what I learned? Not only are there different types of people, cold constitution, hot constitution, and those that fall between, there are different types of food. And interestingly enough, my body's own intelligence had gravitated toward the warming foods. Cardamom pods are one of the warming foods. they also cause you to uptake more of the nutrition from the blueberries than if you didn't have them in there. The next warming spice I had already gravitated to was turmeric. This recipe calls for 4 grams of turmeric, and I want you to see what that looks like. I describe it as about the size of a nickel, or maybe almost a quarter, and about 1/8 of an inch thick. That's 4 grams of turmeric. Of course, if you add a little more, it's not going to hurt you. And then 6 grams of ginger. And if these are organic, you don't need to peel them. But guess what? Ginger and turmeric are warming spices in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. The next thing is a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. What is pumpkin pie spice? It's basically a combination of cinnamon and cloves and nutmeg and other spices that we put in pumpkin pie. However, guess what? Cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg are all warming spices in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. So these things help to warm our body even if they're in a colder form. Okay, so we put those things, and then I like avocado in my smoothie, but I typically only have 1/4 of an avocado a day. So this is just 1 serving, whereas when I made my green smoothie video, I showed you how to make 2. I'm showing you how to make 1 serving of porridge. And I'm using 1/4 of this avocado. And that's a good amount for 1 person. And then because I've got turmeric in there, I've got to put at least a pinch of fresh black peppercorn, because remember, black pepper causes you to absorb about 2,000 times the curcumin in the turmeric. 2,000 times more than you would without it. The pepperine in black pepper is a powerful nutrient. Okay, and then you're going to want to sweeten it a little bit. And this is to taste, but I put, for 1 person, 2 of these tiny scoops. I use the tiny scoop, which is about 1/32 of a teaspoon. I'm putting 2 tiny scoops of the Omega Organic stevia, which I recommend. And guess what I'm doing with my blueberries? I'm putting my blueberries in the bottom of my bowl. But note, they were frozen. But if I added frozen blueberries, I'm not going to have a warm porridge. So I thaw them the night before, or I stick my cup of blueberries into my dehydrator if it's running at 105 degrees. That will not kill the enzymes, but will warm them up while I exercise. Okay, so that, and then we have our entire, look at, this is a dinner plate. This is a lot of greens I get to have every morning. That's why I wasn't willing to give it up. Now, notice I have a variety here on the plate. I've got some chard. This is a leaf of chard. I've got some organic spinach as well, and I've got microgreens. Now, I don't necessarily want to warm all these greens because I want some of them to be still alive and active enzymatically. So I'm going to put a nice handful of greens in with these things in the blender. And I'm going to initially warm this by turning this blender to high speed and letting it pulverize all those spices and heat. So we're going to turn the video off for a minute once I get this started, because I'm going to let this get nice and warm. And with a Vitamix, you turn it to high speed and it's designed to warm it, but it's going to take a minute or so. So once I get this turned on, we'll shut off the video for about a minute. Okay, so while this Vitamix was running on high speed, I put my hands on the outside of the canister, and you can tell when it's nice and warm. And if you're a cold hand person like me, that feels good. You can also tell when you take the lid off and you see some steam rising. This is nice and warm. So now I'm going to add the rest of my greens and very briefly mix on low speed so that the result is a warm porridge, but I haven't killed everything. Now, you could put your berries and your flaxseed in here if you wanted to, but I found that, number one, I want to make sure that some of the components are still raw, and number two, I enjoy the treat of the berries in the porridge, and I enjoy the different texture of the flaxseed or chia seed and a few walnuts on top. So I'm just very briefly going to blend this in, and then we'll be ready to pour it. Okay, so our green porridge is ready, and I have my bowl and spoon ready. I'm hungry. You can see it's steaming some, so I'm going to pour this green porridge into the bowl, and then I'm going to sprinkle my flaxseed. Now, I ground this flaxseed in my coffee grinder because I didn't want to put it in. If you're putting it into the blender, you can leave it whole. So that is a heaping tablespoon of whole flaxseed, which equals 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed. And then some additional omega-3s in about a heaping tablespoon of walnuts. And now I get to taste it. I love this. What a warming treat for my tummy. The crunch, the sweetness, the ginger, all those warming spices. If you're a cold constitution person, this is a heavenly breakfast. So, take this information and do as you need to, and have a healthy day.